we welcome in John Shipley now from Jaguar Report. Good morning, Ship. How are you?
Hey, doing good, my friends. How y'all doing?
Doing okay. I mean, so not splashy names on day one. Which signing do you think is the biggest key for the Jaguars' 2025 success among the ones they agreed to yesterday?
Yeah, I think the two I go to are Jordan Lewis and Patrick McCarry. I know, obviously, there are questions about kind of the logjam the Jaguars now have with the defensive backs who translate better to inside than anywhere else. But it shouldn't be mistaken. Jordan Lewis is one of the better slot cornerbacks in the entire NFL. You know, he has a ton of experience, played a lot of different roles for Dallas, played in a lot of different defenses, and excelled in all of them, and arguably had his best year last year. So you're not getting a guy that's declining. You know, if anything, you know, he's continuing to get better as he continues to get experience in the NFL. I think he can be an impact guy in the secondary as they sort everything out on where people are going to play. And then McCarry, I expect him to be the starting right guard, but the beauty with his game is that if they face any injuries moving forward, you know, they have a guy who has proven he can play quality snaps at all five offensive line positions. That gives them great flexibility. It gives them a big edge when it comes to the active game day roster. You know, maybe they can carry one less offensive lineman because they know that, you know, he can fill in really in any spot, even including center. So I think those are the two names that jump out to me as the most high impact signings that they made.
We know Jaran Jones has been talked about as an impact player potentially for them as the slot player for them coming out of his rookie year. What does he look like if they do ask him now to just be an outside corner? Is he capable of stepping up into that role?
Yeah, it's definitely a transition. It's a much different role. You know, being inside in the slot, you know, you're a lot more involved in run fits, blitzes, etc. A lot of things that Jaran does really well. The one thing with Jaran is that while he didn't play outside much, if any, really last year, he does have experience going back to college playing the role, both at FSU and Mississippi State. He's done it before. You know, Trent Baalke said when they drafted him last year that he thought that was something he could potentially, you know, even do for them. They didn't feel like they had to put him in outside corner last year because they had Buster Brown. They had to move Darnell Savage back to safety because of the issues at safety, and he was the most logical fit inside. But I think he's a guy you at the very least, you know, thanks to his, you know, elite athleticism, toughness, competitiveness, you want to at least see and give him a chance to kind of win a job somewhere in the secondary, especially after what he put on film last year.
Look, John, I understand, and I think we all have to remind ourselves that they have a vision for how they want to run their football team. And they, for instance, probably didn't feel Evan Ingram was a great fit in their offense for the way they want to do things. Okay, for the cap savings we get by not having him, we can go out and replace him with two guys who are not going to be primary pass catchers, are going to be primary blockers. So I understand all that, and so I understand fits. Eric Murray's an interesting one to me because, you know, for double what you gave him, you could have gotten what is considered by many the top safety on the market. Javon Holland signed a 3-year deal with the Giants for $45 million, which is double what Murray got here. And, you know, no state income tax. I think you put the same contract on the table, he's probably taking the one from the Jags. But what is it about Murray that you think they see in him? Because, you know, his reputation was that he was kind of average at best among safeties last year.
Yeah, and honestly, I think maybe, you know, just looking at this safety group, you know, guys like Cam Bynum, Trayvon Moehrig, obviously Javon Holland, who have all got big paydays, it just seems like they, from my perspective, are not seeing safety as a position that they want to spend that kind of money on. You know, a lot of people connected them throughout the NFL to Holland, but I said yesterday that, you know, I was getting the sense that as free agency inched closer, it seemed like he was kind of pricing himself out of where they wanted to go to at safety. And, you know, James Gladstone comes from a place in Los Angeles where that's kind of how they viewed safety. You know, they would make moves here now and then, but they weren't going to set the market. They weren't going to hand out major deals. And it just seems like there's a lot of the Rams' influence on how they kind of went about building this thing on the first day of free agency. I think in Murray, like you said, you're probably getting an average, you know, veteran spot starter, et cetera. It's not somebody they gave a ton of money to. It's not somebody who will be on the roster for the next 4 to 5 years, et cetera. I view him really as a Band-Aid, you know, to help them get through the 2025 season at safety, et cetera, as they explore, you know, finding guys they can draft and develop at the position.
The only player they only gave the one-year deal to was Dami Brown for $10 million for 2025. What do you think is fair to expect from him in the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think people are looking at him as a Christian Kirk replacement simply because they traded Kirk and then signed Brown. I don't view it that way. If you look at his career splits, he's played significantly more snaps on the outside than he has in the slot throughout his entire career. So he's a guy who I think when they go 11 personnel, you'll see him at the Z position at wide receiver. You'll see him get a lot of screens, a lot of vertical routes, etc. You know, Christian Kirk was more of a guy who dominated the middle of the field, the intermediate part from the inside, whereas Brown, you know, he's going to be a guy who gets his vertical shots downfield, really good after the catch. He's a really good scheme fit, I think, with Cohen. And, you know, $10 million, you know, looking at what Tutu Atwell, for example, got with the Rams, that seems like the going rate for number 3 wide receiver in the NFL right now. So I think expect him to have, you know, some big plays here and there, but I wouldn't expect him to obviously be a focal point of the offense. But he's going to have some stuff schemed up for him just simply because of how well his skill set fits with Liam Cohen's scheme.
Where do you think this leaves them in terms of the remainder of free agency? Cap space, John, I've heard estimations they still have around $30 million. I haven't seen any site that has the contract info on all the guys they agreed to terms with, so I'm not sure if anyone knows exactly. But do you think they'll still backfill with a few more signings? Do you think they're maybe going to wait out Cooper Kupp getting released, or are they done for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I saw a couple of those projections and seen the big spenders, and then you look and they say they only had 5 players listed for the Jags instead of the full 9. They definitely have a lot more room to work with and spend. You know, I think that they're going to continue adding guys. I think it's going to be in the double digits in terms of free agents they bring in. I don't think any major names or anything like that. I think it'll mostly be the kind of guys that you're seeing, you know, spot starters, depth guys, the guys who, like I said, essentially, for lack of a better word, are Band-Aids for the roster right now as they go toward, you know, kind of overturning what had been built the last few years. So they do have some flexibility. I'm not sure, especially after the Brown signing, that how interested they will be in a guy like Kupp. It kind of seems like, you know, well, they definitely do need to add more to the receiver position. It seems like, you know, just simply because of the contract they gave Brown, that they see him as a starter. Gabe Davis isn't going anywhere. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. is the number 1 receiver. Kind of feels like they're set in terms of starting receivers. So I think maybe they continue to look in the secondary, maybe another safety, an outside cornerback, etc. And defensive line, you know, they haven't added an edge or a defensive tackle yet. Those are 2 spots where they definitely need improved depth. So those are the kind of spots I'm looking at as they move forward.
What impact does what they did yesterday have on the draft?
Yeah, no, I think, honestly, it sets them up perfectly to take truly the best player available at number 5. You know, they in my opinion now, shouldn't feel cornered into any kind of pick. You know, they added a receiver. They added secondary pieces. They added 3 different guys to the offensive line. I think definitely they had the flexibility to kind of do what they want with the pick. I'm still thinking trenches, whether that's Mason Graham, a defensive tackle, whether it's even adding still another offensive lineman and just putting the best 5 out there, really putting a big emphasis into investment on the trenches, even if it seems like overkill for 2025. That's still kind of where my head is thinking. I'm still thinking trench at number 5, whether it's offense or defense. But they set themselves up well to the point where they shouldn't feel forced to take any one specific position.
Yeah, I don't have an issue if they're looking at a particular wide receiver. I'm not even saying it has to be McMillan, whomever they like early on. Ship, because, like, you know, Dami Brown here for 1 year. Gabe Davis could be rolled off the roster next year, right? So you're going to kind of be right back in that same position again. And at least now you've got a circumstance where a guy can come in and you feel like, I've got veterans who can play. We don't need you to be, you know, the savior opposite Brian Thomas right away. So I still think, yeah, like you said, everything's in play. It just, there's no one thing that you have to take at this particular time. So what is your day like today? Just hanging loose, waiting for more shoes to drop, or what are we doing?
So I said yesterday I was excited to see, you know, what a new regime does. I had no expectations of what to expect. I didn't expect to have to do 9 breaking stories yesterday. So I'm hoping that maybe they take, the day off, maybe look at some more guys Friday. But, especially in the first few days of free agency, it's really one of those times where, reporters are really, on call, like 24/7. Like you're waiting for something to happen. You don't know that it will, but you're prepared for it. So I'll be by my phone, working the phones all day, talking to people, obviously typing up a storm, ready for whatever the Jaguars have for us.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.